I'm actually quite amazed that this is working right now. So real quick, before we do go forward with this video, two things I want to get out of the way. Number one, I'm not sponsored by Canon at all to say any of the stuff in this video. Number two, I lied about saying that I'm not going to use the Canon 80D anymore. In fact, I'm actually recording this video on it right now. And I told you guys yesterday that the LCD does not display any sort of image on it. I can't get any live feed out of it for recording video. However, I remember that I had a cord that can connect the camera to my computer, and I actually can use my old laptop as an external monitor. We have our very first sort of stationary setup here, and I'm pretty excited about it actually. So I'm not totally done with the Canon 80D. It's still going to be used, and I think this is kind of what it's going to be used for. So without further ado, welcome to another unboxing. Alright, so I told you guys yesterday that I was getting a new camera. So I went out this morning, and I went to Best Buy, and I bought the Canon EOS R. Is that the front of the box? That is the front of the box. Look at that. EOS R. Wow. I'm super stoked to open up this box. This is going to be my very first full-frame camera. This is my very first mirrorless camera. I'm stepping into an entirely new world that I have never even been in before. I'm super stoked about this, not gonna lie. Now we got instruction manual, probably will not be reading that. The battery charger. The great thing about this camera is that this uses the exact same batteries as the Canon 80D, so I don't have to buy a bunch of new batteries, which is great. I don't know what this thing is. And right here is our camera. Oh my God. I'm excited if you can't tell. Rossi, hold on to that box for me. Here it is, the Canon EOS R. Now, something to know about the Canon EOS R, this is Canon's very first full-frame mirrorless camera, not their first mirrorless camera. When Canon released this camera back in the fall, they released this camera with a few different lenses, and these were the RF lenses. These are completely new lenses for Canon, meant solely for the Canon EOS R. You can't really adapt them to any other bodies out there. When they released that, they released a 24-105 f4, they released a 28-70 f2, a 50-1.2, and a 30 f1.8 macro lens. And all of those sound like really nice pieces of glass, but they're heavy and they're expensive. So instead of me having to buy a bunch of new lenses, I went ahead and I purchased this camera along with an RF to EF adapter. So I get to adapt my EF lenses like the 16-35 that's on the 80D right now and my 70-200 onto this camera. Along with that, I get to finally use this as a 50mm lens, my nifty 50. Super happy about that. Underneath that little shutter right there is the sensor. Now this camera is a 30 megapixel sensor, which is pretty much the same sensor size as the Canon 5D Mark IV. This camera essentially is a mirrorless 5D Mark IV, give or take a couple features and a couple properties. So I bought the EOS R over the 5D Mark IV for a few different reasons, one of which was the size of the camera. This is significantly smaller than that big honking body, which is the 5D Mark IV. The price, this is about $1,000 cheaper. It's got C-Log built in, which is Canon's flat color profile, which is phenomenal for color grading, so I don't have to use Cine Style on the Canon 80D anymore. Now the C-Log on here is pretty nice. It's apparently, from the research that I've done, it's very easy codec to work with. I can record 8-bit C-Log internally and 10-bit externally if I have an external monitor. Now this camera can do 4K, but it can only do 4K at 30 frames. And with that 4K, there's also a 1.7 times crop, which is a little bit worse of a crop than on a crop censored camera. On top of that, I don't have Canon's amazing dual pixel autofocus if I'm shooting in 4K. Instead, I think this camera does contrast-based autofocus. I'm not 100% sure, but that's not as great as the dual pixel autofocus. Now I can tell you that with me basically hating on the 4K in this camera, I don't really need to use 4K. I'll be honest 100%. I don't use 4K for filming my vlogs unless I'm filming it with the drone or using the GoPro. And really, other than the GoPro, the drone is the only thing that I will always shoot in 4K. I will never go to 1080p with the drone. Never. With this, I don't need to use 4K. I don't need to use 4K for vlogging. I don't need to use 4K for corporate gigs unless I'm being paid to shoot it in 4K. Now, the other thing about this camera is that it does offer 120, or you can shoot videos at 120 frames a second, which is pretty good for slow motion. It's a lot better than 60 frames, but it only can shoot that at 720p. And when I'm shooting at that, I lose the autofocus. So at that point, there's really no point in me shooting videos in 120 unless I absolutely need to, and unless I know I'm going to be able to nail that focus manually. I really don't need to shoot in 120. On top of all of this. There is no in-body stabilization, or IBIS as the term is thrown around commonly nowadays. You know, the handheld filming with this is not going to be the best. So putting this thing on a stabilizer like the Ronin, or keeping it on a tripod or something, some way that I can keep this camera stable when filming is really going to make a difference. I don't want to rely on handheld filming with this camera because there is no in-body stabilization. Now there is digital stabilization or enhanced stabilization, but from what I've seen, those aren't really the best. Out of those two stabilizations, I think the digital stabilization is the better out of the two, but it's not great. Either way, if I'm shooting video and I need to move, this thing is definitely going to be on a stabilizer. It will never not be on a stabilizer. All right, well, I just spent the last 5 minutes or so going through and setting all the buttons and dials to pretty much the same setup as if I was shooting with the 80D, just so that it's comfortable for me when I go to shoot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pop this thing onto the Ronin S. We're gonna head on outside, shoot some B-roll, take some pictures, and see what kind of cool stuff we can get with the Canon EOS R. Let's go. So that's the EOS R. We shot that entire sequence at 1080p at 60 frames a second. As I said, I'm not real pressed on the 4K with this camera. I'm not real pressed on the 120 for this camera. Really, the most important thing that I do like about this camera is the 1080p. Now, I have not got a chance to review this footage just yet, but I'm sure it looks great. I did get a chance to review some of the footage from the LCD, and we shot all of that sequence there on the Ronin S, which is my gimbal, it's my stabilizer. There was one sequence where I literally ran after Rossi. I ran right behind him, and for that split second, he was out of focus, but then right when the camera turned towards him, boom, the dual pixel really kicked in and it focused right on him. I was super happy about that. Then as soon as we were done filming that, I went out, shot a few pictures with the nifty 50 here. The video I'm not too concerned about. I'm pretty confident in the video. It's the pictures, however, that I'm a little concerned about. My only issue was when I went to go and focus on something really quick, it wouldn't focus at all, and then I switched it over from one shot to AI servo, and then it worked pretty well. My other issue is that I don't know how to disable this. On the R, you can change the autofocus points. And my issue is that if I have the LCD like this, and then I go to shoot, the autofocus point will go to wherever my nose is touching the screen. Switching between AI servo and one shot to get closer to my subject, or even just disabling the ability to move my autofocus points with the touchscreen. Those are the two things I just need to figure out. Other than that, the RAWs look pretty good on this. Looking at the LCD screen, they look crisp as can be. Looking at them on a computer, they look awesome. They're huge files, which is insane. It's gonna take up a lot of space. I'm gonna need to buy a couple more hard drives, but the video, I'm very impressed with 1080p. The images, I'm pretty impressed with. I just have to figure this out. And really, I have my first actual paid gig using this thing coming up tomorrow night. So I've got another day or so to learn how to use this thing and become very comfortable with it before I start using it for actual work. Already, I feel pretty confident that I made the right decision to pick up this camera over the 5D Mark IV or the A7 III. I know it got a lot of hate on the specs, but really, I don't care too much about too many of the specs. All I care about was this being full frame, it basically being a working camera. I need it to be reliable, I need it to be quick, I need good autofocus for pictures and for video especially, and I think this thing delivers that. There's a couple more kinks I need to work out, but I think I can figure those out before tomorrow night. Going forward with this camera, this is not my new vlogging camera. Hell no. I am not going to use this for vlogs. This is not going to be daily vlogs. If I do use it for vlogs, this thing will be set up, secured on a tripod somewhere safe, not out in the rain, not out in dangerous conditions. This camera will be my main working camera, not my main vlogging camera. The vlogging camera, I'm working on that right now. So I know this video was not a totally comprehensive review. Maybe we'll do one of those in the future, but I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.